Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to another episode of TellyCast. My guest this week is Emma Walker, who's boss of branded content agency Curly Media. Welcome to TellyCast, Emma. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. And congratulations on all the success that you've had with Curly. It's been amazing to see various things coming through over the last year or so, particularly your Spotify Unwrapped video, which was, global hit, I think.
Yes, it was. It was a big one. It kept us busy last year for sure.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that in a bit more detail in a while. So first of all, tell us about Curly Media and your, how you founded it and what your approach is with the business. Tell us about the background of Curly.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose our approach with the business is that it's always changing. We're kind of having to be chameleons because I think that is the industry we're in, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But in terms of how we started, my partner, who is also my founding partner, is a podcast producer by trade, and then I've always been in television, TV development mostly. So kind of have had an understanding of always trying to work out what what commissioners, even at broadcasters, wanted, and therefore what audiences wanted. And that's the same for my partner's kind of, thing with podcasts as well. I suppose audience has always been, what we've had to serve essentially. And you have to go to your commissioners or your whoever's for money, but actually ultimately it's about, what you're making and who that's for. And that's how we started Curly. We, the TV industry was changing, as you well know. And I was kind of at that point in my career where I was kind of, quite young and excited by it. And I really didn't want to be feeling like I was in an industry that was kind of not in a great place. So kind of young, I was like, I'm not ready for that. I'm at the point where it's, I should be running. I should be kind of taking on loads of challenges. And it just was starting to feel all a bit neggy, and I was like, oh, it's not. I don't want that. I want to be in a fun and exciting place. And then that was kind of happening with podcasts at the time as well, for various reasons. This is kind of pre-video podcasts, which I think kind of opened it up in a different way. But and that's how Curly was born, I suppose. It was kind of this, two young people who were excited to make stuff. And not ready to be kind of defeated by a changing landscape, and we're kind of ready to throw everything at it. And that's how we started. And that
was January 2022.
Yeah, that's when I typed Curly Media into Company's House. Yeah, I would say that we didn't properly get going until later that year because we didn't get a commission until sort of mid that year, and we got a podcast commission that was our first one sort of through Curly, and that was with Delicious the Ella, the food brand, to do their podcast for them, and that was our first job, and then it sort of went from there quite quickly, but podcast was very much our starting point, but I shouldn't say this, I'm on a podcast. I don't love podcasts. I'll say it now. I do.
Well, that's the end of the show.
I like video podcasts, but it's nothing to do with podcasts. I think it's an amazing craft. But me personally, I don't have the concentration. This is why I'm into short form. I also struggle with films. I'm better with TV series and shorter episodes. And I find I always wanted to do video. I've always loved television. I've always loved that form of storytelling. And I think when it was kind of just listening podcasts, I was kind of like, I'm now working in a place where it's not my love. It's fine, but it's not my passion. And so I was kind of constantly looking for ways when we were doing kind of just listening podcasts of how can we be introducing a video offering into this. And kind of luckily, actually, that sort of was the time that vodcasts, if that's what they're even called now, video podcasts, was starting to be a thing. And so we very quickly were like, well, we know about cameras, we know about TV. I've got, pages of people who I can, apply from TV to this. They know how to work cameras, so they must be able to work out how to do a video podcast. So that was kind of where we very quickly jumped onto that. And we were like, yep, we can do that. And that, I suppose, is the first kind of 18 months of our business was that, before sort of moving further and further into more sort of branded social kind of storytelling content that's outside of vodcasts, to the point where now actually we don't do many video podcasts. We do some. We do a few for Netflix, which is great. But actually that's not really now where we are. We've kind of evolved since then, but that was very much the start. And I think it's interesting. I think what I'm really grateful for with doing video podcasts back then was that it kind of, it really was and still is at the intersection of, you know, branded and entertainment first. It's quite a nice medium where like the content and the discussion points or whatever, or the entertainment is actually at the forefront. It doesn't ever feel, even if it's a brand funded thing, like it's quite hard to like shove a brand into like a talking medium, isn't it? Like you can't have like their logo visually really. It's kind of, the focus is on the content. And I think that was a really nice starting point for us with Curly, was like, you know, entertainment and making people interested in what you're talking about or what you're filming is kind of the kind of foundation of our company, really.
Yeah. And when you set the business up, I think you know, anybody who's setting a new business up, particularly in the entertainment industry, it's a case of let's get any job through the door, you know, and certainly in the first year or so, because we know how many businesses fail in that, you know, in the first couple of years. So it's a case of, you know, just trying to generate as much business as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, did you talked about your first video podcast was your first project, but did you set out to become a branded entertainment business right from day one, or was it a case of, and was that as a reaction to the downturn in commissioning in factual content, or?
Yeah, I think for me, it was just kind of obvious that brands have money. And I don't know if it's just because I wasn't very experienced in television, so I maybe never got to the woods of the changes. I kind of were aware of them, but I wasn't senior, so it kind of, I wasn't a decision maker or anything. So I think for me, it was just kind of like, but surely if you're doing something for like Channel 4 or ITV, like there's ad breaks. So there's presumably brands are like paying for some element. I know they're not editorially across the content, but brand money is being spent and that money is making its way into the pockets of TV producers. Yep. So for me, it was just kind of obvious that, you know, that we were starting to see kind of rumblings of brands kind of just making their own stuff, putting it on YouTube. So for me, and getting great numbers, and you could kind of see the TV numbers going down and the YouTube numbers going up and brands behind that. And you're going to, it was kind of obvious to me that was going to keep happening. I think also because for brands, like they're selling products, their products change all the time, but they do have a very close relationship with their audience. And I think if they're sort of realizing that they can get to those audiences and engage them really like, and have control over that, like it was kind of obvious. So I think to answer your question, I think, yes, I think we always knew that the places we needed to go towards were brands. I think when we first started, it wasn't very clear who at brands were kind of commissioning content and why they were commissioning it and what for. And I think that's partly because that was starting to, it wasn't that clear at brands either. I think it's becoming clearer, but I think, you know.
Well, it's a much more confusing landscape, I think, particularly for TV producers are moving into the brand-funded world. It's like, well, where are the budgets? Is it purely the marketing team? Is it the PR team? Is it the social team?
Well,
you know, where do those budgets sit, and how do you find that out, and who the people to approach? I mean, it's kind of as simple as that, I think, for many people, and that's why there's a bit of a barrier. And it's, you know, it's not just there's one commissioner whose job is to you know, commission content. There could be many different contacts that you might need.
100%. But there's an opportunity, right? Like that's the thing. It's like I always felt like with commissioning in TV, it was kind of like, if you don't have a really great relationship with this one commissioner, you maybe have worked with them before, or it's very hard to, if they're kind of the gatekeeper of like a whole genre, you know, that for me is like, God, that's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know them, they don't know me.
Because they've got their, and also, you know, many of them have got their favourites, right?
100%. You know, and same as brands, same with anything. But I think what you just said there is just like, that means there's opportunity, right? And you're right, like all of those departments, in my experience at brands, they all have budgets. They all have different budgets. They maybe all have to work together on one campaign for one thing. But that campaign might be an overarching kind of campaign for a brand, but that might have social budget, it might have PR budget, it might have a marketing budget, it might have out of home budget. And what I've found, particularly we do a lot with Spotify, and what we've found particularly with them is that if you can have really good relationships across those different departments, they all need to work together because they've got a shared thing happening as well. And so if you can be kind of talking about ideas that might need, you know, your main contact might need to get a bit more money from like that team, but that idea might just answer and tick some boxes for that team. You know, if you're talking about a social idea, but you know that there's potentially, you know, it might get press pickup, well, that social commissioner might go to their press team and go, hey, I really want to do this thing. I need a bit more budget. I think it's got a really good press pickup potential. Here's why. And that press team might just go, oh, yeah, you actually have answered something for me there. And actually, yeah. So I think it's that there are opportunities. I think the biggest thing is understanding how those departments within a brand all talk to each other. And I think that probably changes for every brand. And I don't know how it works for every brand, but I think where we've seen the most success it is in, you know, yes, having your kind of key in, but kind of understanding what they've got to navigate internally as well, and you know how they can get ideas away with their bosses because it ticks different boxes for different departments who all have different budgets.
So you made Sky's Danny Dyer Lookalike contest,
yes,
which generated over 10 million organic views. So we'll talk a bit about Spotify in a little while, but talk us through this campaign and how that developed.
So Sky had they wanted to advertise their upcoming show, which was Mr. Big Stuff Series 2, which features Danny Dyer. We were asked to pitch in for ideas for the campaign, and I think part of the brief, as it often is to kind of, particularly with that sort of commission, I think their potential struggle, I don't want to speak for Sky, but is that there's probably quite a broad audience and therefore it's quite hard to narrow it down exactly. And, you know, particularly for social, if it's skewed a bit older, you know, is that audience, you know, are they on TikTok? Where are they? So I think that was probably a challenge for them. And I think what we really wanted to do was, and I know that's something that broadcasters often want to do is get that kind of press pickup as well, because that's a really good way of like activating, you know, across different platforms. So yes, it might go out on TikTok, but if it gets press pickup, then you're in those two worlds. Great. And I mean, it's just silly, isn't it? A Danny Dyer lookalike contest. I think we just honestly thought it was hilarious. And I think at the time, this was last summer, so summer 2025, there were lots of Hollywood kind of heartthrob lookalike contests going on, like Timothy Chalamet.
That's right.
Can't even remember. There were a few, but they were all heartthrobs, Hollywood, like Harry Styles one, and blah, blah, blah. And we just thought, how funny to just flip it on its head and make it Danny Dyer, the everyman, the kind of, how British, obviously they really wanted to go after a kind of British core audience. And we just thought that is the most British thing I've ever heard in my life. And actually for the brand, they got to show up in culture and they got to be part of the conversation online and part of the conversation in the press, you know, for quite a few days afterwards. I think we had Scott Mills messaged us on Instagram to say, hey, can I speak to the winner on my show? You know, it just blew up. And I think it did that because it was just one of those things where everyone understood it, but also understood that it was a new approach to kind of a thing that everyone sort of understood.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a new idea to do a lookalike contest, but it was a new idea to sort of slightly flip it on its head and put it
but
in
it's also playing into the sort of cultural currency and what had been going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's really smart in terms of the way that, again, you were obviously dealing with the marketing and the PR teams there
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah. And working to both of them and all together. You know, every call was with all of us, like talking about it and ways to make sure we're activating in both worlds.
And so tell us about the last year's Wrapped UK film, because that is potentially, I mean, would you say that's the biggest project you've ever done? Certainly in terms of success. I don't know about budget, but tell us about what that project is and how you got involved with it.
Yeah, so Spotify, I mean, Wrapped is their biggest marketing campaign that they do every year. At the end of the year, you know, if you're a Spotify user, you get your Wrapped results. You get to kind of understand your own year through your music listening habits or your podcast listening or audiobooks or whatever. And it kind of tells you the story of your own year. And something that Spotify wanted to do last year, well, they always want to do every year, is go bigger. You know, how do we get bigger and bigger? How do we make it more and more successful? And I think something that I think they'd previously done lots of different iterations of like how you show up for Wrapped, whether that's through a live event or whether it's through you know, a big kind of out of home campaign or whatever it is. But I think for us last year with Spotify, we were doing more and more production with them, more and more kind of digital content, you know, entertaining content to advertise certain things. We'd done this kind of sketch for Louis Theroux with the comedian Josh Berry to advertise his podcast, where he did an impression of Louis Theroux. We had an impressionist interviewing Louis Theroux, and that blew up online. And we were doing lots of different bits with music artists, you know, really good like storytelling content, you know, using TV directors and stuff, and, you know, but kind of making it short form, making it work online. And so it sort of was a natural evolution of last year for us with Spotify to sort of all sit around and go, well, maybe the best thing is to do what we've been doing all year, which is to make a film. And the biggest challenge, I think, for us with it was just, you know, how do you make something resonate for lots of people when something like music is, yes, it's very like kind of binds people together, but it's also so broad.
Well, it's broad but personal at the same time.
Yeah, so how do you kind of engage like me and you in a thing that, like, yes, I'm sure we both like music, but probably different music, and how do you keep those people engaged? And I think the way that we did that was to use our understanding of the cultural landscape online. You know, it was really important that it wasn't just the music artists. They were kind of our main characters for sure, because it was kind of to celebrate their year as well, and their fans' year as a result. But the way we found to kind of bring everyone together online was to use kind of culturally relevant moments that were outside of music as well, and bring them into the film. So our opening shot was of Bus Auntie, you know, huge TikToker, had a huge year last year and is still absolutely smashing it. But, you know, by kind of working with her to have our opening shot on her, you know, she transcends generations. Like, she's got a huge audience across multiple generations. She transcends music taste. You know, she's kind of got a general fan base in that sense. So she sort of was our opening hook. And then also by kind of jumping onto like things that had happened throughout the year, like viral moments online. Like, for example, like Lewis Capaldi had gone viral because he was at the F1, and I think someone he like went out to shake someone's hand, and they didn't mean to, but they aired him, and he kind of, it went viral.
Yeah.
So in our scene for Lewis Capaldi, we did a nod to that, where the scene was based around the postman not realising it was Lewis Capaldi and missing his handshake. So jumping on that moment, there was also a moment where Kim Kardashian had gone viral with Grime Gran, and this had happened 3 weeks before our shoot. Grime Gran had interviewed Kim Kardashian about what she likes on a jacket potato, and it had gone viral. So in our script, we were kind of there a few days before our shoot with a music artist going, how can we get Grime Gran into this scene? And we formed a scene where the music artist, Sky Newman, kind of shouts up at a window and says hello to Grime Gran, and Grime Gran says, are you going to come round for a jacket potato?
Yeah.
So it's just bringing these different worlds,
Cultural nods
to celebrate the year, which is what Wrapped is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've waffled on there, but I think in short, it was kind of understanding what Spotify wanted to do, which is to kind of show up, be culturally relevant, mark their big campaign, which is kind of to round off the year. And the best way we felt to do that is to, wrap it all up with, all these different cultural nods that we knew would resonate online.
And does this and that basically got served to everybody in their Unwrapped, essentially. So I mean, give us a sense of the number of people that actually that saw this clip.
Gosh, I mean, it gets into the woods of like the rollout as well for a piece of content like that. The actual kind of film is a 2-minute film. I know part of the rollout plan was that it took over the ad break of ITV's I'm a Celeb. So that was the first time, I think, ever that a brand had fully taken over a whole 2-minute ad slot on TV. And our piece of content sat there. So, I had messages from like very random people in my life saying, I've just seen your thing on I'm a Celeb. People that probably wouldn't see it if they're not on TikTok or whatever. So that was quite fun. And then part of the rollout was that, and actually a really important part of when we were like designing this whole piece, this whole film, was that each scene stands alone on its own as well. So yes, it's a scene with, I think it's 12 artists, 12 scenes kind of strung together into a 2-minute piece. But it was really crucial that we were able to lift each of those scenes so that each music artist could put it on their platform, their individual scene.
Yeah.
Because, if they might, but they might not want to. They might just want to put their scene out there, and that's completely fair. And so what it meant was that we had 12 different artists, all with huge audiences, getting their audience to it. We then were able to put it on Spotify's main feeds across their different platforms. So you kind of get that general audience in. They went out on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. And then further to that, something we really wanted to do is, and we still do to this day, is create worlds. So we think of campaigns as like world builds. So yes, you've got the main film, and that can be cut up and put into different places. But then you also think about when you're on all these shoots, what social content can we be getting with these artists or with these creators or with whoever's there that speaks to the campaign. So then you're coming away from these shoots, which might sometimes only be like an hour, but you're coming away with like so many different opportunities to cut content and put content into different places. But crucially, and something we really pride ourselves on, is that whatever asset you're looking at, whether it's a kind of fun TikTok quiz or whether it's this high production value glossy ad, if you shot it on the same day, your talent's in the same outfit, you shoot it on set so they're in the same world. So you've got this kind of really lovely, when you look on the day it all goes out, wherever you see it activated, it should all look and feel like that same world. You should be able to kind of see that artist, but go, oh, that's that Wrapped thing. Oh, I saw it like that, or I saw it there. But actually, people kind of can connect the dots, and that's what we kind of think of as like, how do we take over the world with that campaign?
So it's probably impossible to talk about the number of views it's had across
Yeah,
all of those different, but across socials and
it was a
and
lot.
other channels.
It was
yeah,
a lot.
it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
So talking about the makeup of your business, then, so you've just hired Jade Green
Yes. we have,
to
yeah.
be part of your team, and she was at Spotify's social marketing team.
Yeah.
So how does Spotify feel about you poaching one of their staff?
I mean, I think that I would hope that it's a testament to a good relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't like to think of it as poaching her. I like to see it as, identifying somebody who we've worked very closely with for a few years, and kind of always thinking, gosh, she'd be good.
Yeah.
Because she is.
Yeah.
But also, not overstepping there. But I think it just came about of a kind of quite a natural. It came about quite naturally in understanding, where somebody wants to go with their career, and that's not for anyone to, and it just felt like a very good coming together of minds and an opportunity for both Curly and I hope Spotify as well to sort of, just continue with a strong relationship. I think that it's benefited us massively in having somebody brand side. I think that's really, or who has been brand side, because I haven't, and my co-founder hasn't. And I think having somebody who's had to navigate all the different departments, all the different conversations for internal stakeholders at brands, like that's super helpful for us. Just bringing that perspective to our side is helpful.
Yeah. And what does it say about where you're going next as a business then, that hire?
It says that we want to continue helping brands be kind of culturally relevant through entertaining their audiences. And I think that having a kind of a team behind us who really understand the brand's perspective on these things is really great, because I know that Jade, really often, navigated those conversations and was able to sort of understand, what the creative production team behind something needed, but also what the stakeholders at brands needed. And being able to bridge that gap is super important. And I think for us, our goal is always to be, we like to think of ourselves as like creative partners of brands. So we very much see ourselves as like a partner of Spotify's. And I know that they have that culture as well, where if we're all working together, we're more likely to make things happen.
Yeah.
We're often working at really kind of fast paces, lots of changes all the time with branded content. And I think the only way you can really do that really well is by having really good relationships with your commissioners, essentially. And I think, I hope Spotify, I'm sure they are happy about it. And only last week was it a benefit to them knowing that someone like Jade was our side for various reasons. But so I think it's a benefit to brands as well if their partners have got people who understand what they have to navigate.
Yeah, brand savvy team members, of course. So I've got a list of other brands that you've worked with: Elle UK, Nike, BBC Studios. What are you currently working on now? Is there anything you can tell us about? Because in branded world, it's famously it's very difficult to talk about what work you're doing sometimes, because brands don't often always like you to talk about it. But is there anything recent that you can tell us about that you're working on?
I can't actually say what our current big project is in terms of who the brand is, but I can say that it's a really interesting and new thing for us, which I'm excited about, and I think potentially interesting for the industry as well. It's a broadcast commission, so it's our client is a traditional commissioner, but it's brand funded and it's scripted. And it's a
Interesting.
series, a mini series. So I don't think I am allowed to say anything more than that because it's only just been greenlit. But
Is it vertical or is it
vertical, yeah,
It's a vertical
yeah,
brand funded
yeah,
series. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the editorial control sits with the broadcaster. So
Right.
it's really interesting because I think, and it will be interesting to see how the next few months play out as we work on it. But I think the reason that Curly have been greenlit to do it is because of that understanding of the brand side, experiencing and the commissioner being able to give the brand the confidence that the creative team behind it do understand brands, but then also that for the commissioner, they are happy, I think, to be working with us because we've always been very clear that entertainment is our first and foremost. So hopefully it's a happy marriage. I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, it's amazing number of projects you've been working on over only 3.5 years or so since the company's launched. So 3.5 years into your business, how do you generally charge? What's the majority of your accounts? Are they sort of project fees or retainer based, or how does that work? Because obviously it's a different business model to commissioning within a TV industry. So just take us through that briefly.
So a mixture. I think when we before we had retainers, obviously that's probably closer to the TV model, but without the potential for an income from IP. So it's hard because you're project based, project to project. So we would give everything to every project, and then you come out the other side hopefully with a bit of profit to live off for a few months while you try and get another commission. And that was very much our first few years, until we got a couple of retained clients where that then just like gives you that bit of runway in terms of knowing what's coming. And obviously you can never get comfy, but it just means you can slightly build out your teams a bit more. You can make more commitments to your teams, which means you can hone skills more. It's quite hard.
Invest into your business more.
Invest into the business and then actually be better is the thing. So a mixture, and I would say that it's a split between, for us, the dream is always to have some retained work and then also projects. And having that mixture is really good for us. Because the absence of IP in what we're doing, not that there aren't opportunities for IP, but our current, that's not currently what we're focused on. So a mixture of the two is good.
Okay. I mean, and it certainly feels like a great time to be moving into brand funded content and branded entertainment, because as everybody's talking about, brands are the new commissioners. I mean, whether that's strictly true or not, but certainly brands are taking much more proactive lead in terms of creating entertaining content as a business case for bringing them closer to their audiences and entertaining their audiences. Where do you see things going over the next couple of years with Curly in terms of how your business is going to develop, the type of work that you're going to be doing? Give us a sense of that.
I think, brands being a big part of that. I think that the whole industry needs to be, really trying to harness creators more and more. Not that that's a particularly new idea, but I think it's not going away. Like creators and their importance is key because they understand, I think, better than I do, better than a commissioner does. They understand audience like so well because their whole careers have been about them building their own following. And that is so hard to do. So if they've done it, then they know their audience. And that is just so, we just learn, you've got so much learning that can be done if you look at what creators do, because they will just be living in their insights. They'll be living in their comments. They'll be really monitoring what different content that they put out, how it does. And they really analyze that and they go after their audience. And I think we've all got so much to learn from that. And I think, the importance of creators is a really big one.
Yeah. Okay, well, now it's time, Emma, to talk about your story of the week. Tell us what you've chosen as your story of the week.
My story of the week, I don't know a huge amount about, which is why it's my story of the week, because I want to look at it more and more. But I think it was really interesting to see that Disney and TikTok have announced a deal in the last few days. From what I can understand, I think there'll be kind of an ease between the kind of a library of content, Disney content that TikTok creators can use and vice versa. So I think it's just a sign of like these relationships that we see popping up all the time now between kind of our more traditional commissioners or streamers and social platforms. And I think for us as with what we do at Curly, like it's just another nod to like that sort of the kind of our responsibility to really understand the different platforms, but crucially how they all interconnect, and what someone who watches Disney and uses TikTok, what is it they look to TikTok for? What is it they look to Disney for? And how are those interacting? Because both are really important. And I think it's just great to see for me, because I'm like, we always struggle to answer the question, like, so what are you? What is Curly? And it's because, well, we have to understand Disney, but we also have to understand TikTok. We also have to understand YouTube. So it's quite hard so seeing those relationships and deals being done is just kind of interesting to me, because it just kind of reaffirms what I think we know, which is like, you have to understand both.
Yeah. And the importance for major studios like Disney's that are porting to, TikTok and other social channels. It's certainly a sign of where they see the importance. How about your hero of the week?
My hero of the week is actually a viral relationship between a monkey called Xing Xing in China and this elderly Buddhist nun, who they've basically become really good friends, and their relationship has gone viral on TikTok. And I think it's just a very sweet reminder of like what TikTok can be, which is like following this really lovely relationship and story that's happening in a part of the world which I'd probably never really get eyes on. And it's got the internet hooked because it's a story, and it's really lovely, and I urge you to look it up. Just watching their relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where would we find that on TikTok?
Yeah.
And what would we, I guess it's a Buddhist monkey. You search and you'll find.
Yeah, if you put in Xing Xing on
Xing Xing.
Yeah, on TikTok you'll see a lot of content.
Xing Xing. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll check that out for sure. And finally, Emma, who or what are you telling to get in the bin?
Jared Leto.
Ah. Yeah. Yes.
Put him in the bin.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really need to go into any more detail about why, because it's like...
It's really boring,
Yeah, it really is. It feels like there's one of those sort of stories every couple of weeks, isn't there?
Yeah. But he's the latest.
But
so.
yeah, Leto's going in the bin for sure. Emma, thank you so much for coming on TellyCast. It's been lovely chatting with you, and really great to see a young UK agency in the branded content space doing so well, and we're going to be watching with and cheering you on.
Thank you.
And congratulations, and all the best for the rest of the year.
Thank you. It's been lovely. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's about it for this week's TellyCast. Thanks very much to Emma Walker for coming in to the show. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded in London. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay safe.